What's This Food Barbecue Week continues. Today we're going to look at one of the fundamental ingredients of all barbecue. You can't avoid it, you know it. Today's sponsor is Heritage Foods, and you can check them out online at heritagefoodsusa.com. Heritage Foods is a distributor of different cuts of meat and different types of meat, and what they really specialize in is trying to bring business and shed light on rare cuts of meat that are not in really large production. Some animals are actually endangered, and so they try and bring more business to those farmers, more energy toward those products to help bolster the sales and keep species up and producing. One of the cuts that they gave us is from the Berkshire pig. It's grown in Iowa and it was absolutely delicious, but all of their products are of the highest quality and they're all unbelievably tasty. You should check them out online at heritagefoodsusa.com, and if you go to place an order and use the code WTF, you're going to get 10% off of your order. So check them out online and get your hands on some of their tasty products today. All right, so today we're talking about ribs. Animals have them, you have them, I have them. Basically, they are one of the most consumed pieces of meat in barbecue, and you can eat rib meat off of almost any animal. In the barbecue world, you usually see ribs that are beef or pork, though I've had lamb ribs before and they're really good. And they're really popular in Memphis, in Kansas City, and in Texas barbecue. So let's break these different regions of ribs down for a moment. In Memphis, you will find ribs two ways, either wet or dry. Both the ribs are pork, and they'll have a glaze over them if they are wet ribs, and they're sticky and they get all over your face, or they have a really flavorful rub of different ingredients if they are dry, and they usually even sprinkle a little more rub on at the end to just give it another kick. These are really delicious ribs. They're some of my favorite ribs. There's also a technique that they use which is a little different in that they don't usually use wood. They're usually positioning their ribs so they're a distance away from charcoal, and the fat actually drips down onto the charcoal, causes smoke, and they actually kind of smoke in their own char and fat. It's kind of neat. In Kansas City, they're all about the sauce. They usually serve a sauce that's tomato and a little vinegar based. It's sweet, it's sour, it's kind of spicy and tangy. Think like Casey Masterpiece. It's that kind of sauce. And you know, they are often falling off the bone. They're totally juicy, totally tasty, and a little bit messy to eat. In Texas, it's frequent that you'll see beef ribs. After all, it is cattle country. And my experiences show that most Texans go pretty simple. Salt and pepper, and call it a day. Aside from geographical differences in ribs, there are all different types of ribs from different cuts of the animal. Baby back ribs are short, curved ribs that are closest to the spine, while the spare ribs are a bit longer and they're closer to the belly of the animal. And then you have your cuts of meat. They actually refine the ribs even further. If you're getting ribs that are St. Louis style, they generally cut off a lot of the meat up at the top, leaving this rib that's really square. And if you get Kansas City style, they even refine that even more, trim even more off. Of course, you also have the rib tips. This piece of meat that's on the sternum side of the ribs, it's often cut off and then cut up into little bits and cooked the same way that you would cook ribs. It generally doesn't have as much fat and connective tissue in it. It's a little bit more protein focused. Today we have a really interesting cut of Berkshire pork from Heritage Meats. It is the country rib, which is not actually a rib. It comes closer to the shoulder of the animal. It has a bit more fat in it. It has a bit more meat and meatiness to it, which makes it kind of juicy and really, really tasty. So I'm very excited to smoke these up. We're going to do sort of a play on them and create a Memphis style rib, only in flavor, but with these country style ribs. To make a rub, mix 1/4 cup of paprika, 3 tablespoons of light brown sugar, 2 tablespoons of chili powder, 2 tablespoons of black pepper, 1 tablespoon of salt, 2 teaspoons of garlic powder, 2 teaspoons of onion powder, and 1 teaspoon of cayenne pepper. Mix together and set aside. Lightly coat your country style ribs with some yellow mustard and then rub the rub all over the ribs. Let it rest for a few minutes so the flavors soak in. Add these to your smoker and smoke at about 225 degrees for about 5 hours, or until the meat is juicy and tender and reads about 170 degrees internal. Then just slice into them and enjoy. I think you're going to find that these are one of the most juicy and delicious cuts of meat around. I was floored by the beautiful pink smoke ring that formed in just about 4 to 5 hours. The ribs were amazingly tender, just enough fat, super juicy, wildly delicious. Tune in tomorrow for another WTF. Check out our sponsor, heritagefoodsusa.com, and use your 10% off code WTF. If you have something you want me to cover, you can post it in the comments below, or you can find us on Facebook by going to danieldelaney.com/Facebook. I will see you there.